Can you say then that the world is ultimately dissolving moment by moment?
Yeah. Yes. The conventional way of seeing the world you don't lose that through insight practice, but you recognise that it is entirely conceptual. We do not experience the past. We experience now. And even the earlier component parts of this conversation have all ceased without remainder. It does not exist. We keep a recording of it, but even the actual experience of, rewinding the tape and rewatching it, that is happening now, and that ceases. So it's just clearly defining what is conventional reality, past, present, future, and what is ultimate reality, the components of now. And having a clear recognition that there are two different ways of interpreting experience. And it is at that ultimate level that you see that there is no past, present or future, there is just now, and all the component parts, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, hearing, and all the mental objects all arise and pass away. And there is nothing in ultimate experience which is not part of that conditioned and conditioning kind of matrix, if you want to get all sci-fi about it. Yeah, and what you discover is that out of this arising and passing away, this coming to be and dissolving of experience, out of the weaving together of all these component parts that are doing that, the conventional reality emerges. So what is more real is the ultimate level of what we call aggregates arising and passing away, and out of the play of those aggregates is formed the conventional reality of past, present and future. So when did the Big Bang happen? Well, for me, ultimately, the Big Bang is happening now.
Can you explain that?
Well, existence is coming into being now. So seeing is the coming together of a visible object, the sensitive matter of the eye base, and the consciousness that arises. Yeah? So that there is the thing seen and there is seeing. But that arises and passes away. Now you can build that up with all the other 5 physical senses, and then the mind is the 6th sense, and it's all doing the same thing. There is a coming together, a momentary coming together of experience, which is all being weaved together with the various senses all coming together, passing away. And all the components of the mind, like perception and attention and one-pointedness of mind, many different factors all coming together in a moment in order to create this appearance of a solid, separate world. Yeah. So when people normally talk about the Big Bang as a thing that happened 4 billion years ago, it's fine, it works. The whole evolutionary kind of idea works in that conventional reality. But when you actually deconstruct that conventional reality into its ultimately existing components, you realise that actually there is only the coming together and the passing away of momentary experience. And this whole idea of a Big Bang 4 billion years ago is just a concept, it's just an idea, a construct.
I also heard you say once that the earth, something about the earth not existing.
Yeah.
Which I would never be able to explain, but I remember I loved it. What you said about it.
Right.
What did you say about it?
Well, there was the discovery that although conventionally, yes, you say, well, there's Bradford and Avon, there's Wiltshire. I remember being out for a walk on the lanes out in the countryside outside Bradford and Avon, and I was practicing mindfulness of ultimates, and there was the discovery that there was no earth, that there was a perception arising which labelled the experience countryside or Bradford and Avon or planet Earth, but in reality there was no such solid concrete entity in existence. And I'm not saying that is easy for somebody who has never meditated to, or practiced insight meditation, to sort of just go, oh yeah, I see what it means. It's not going to happen. I know that it's controversial and people won't get it, but it's nonetheless true for anyone who takes the time to actually investigate properly, that planet Earth is a construct weaved together by a myriad of mind-body processes.
And is that related to what we were saying earlier about reality dissolving as moment by moment?
Yeah. So that conventional reality is empty of any inherent substance. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that it is a total illusion, because you have to include it. Mm-hmm. So conventional reality does exist at its own level, but it's got no intrinsic reality. But we know this. Say, money. Money is an abstract concept. There isn't anything actually, no such thing as money. It's like an how to describe it? It's something that we all agree on. Mm. But you can't actually find it. And especially now we're going into digital currency. It's getting even more difficult to sort of say, well, what is it as a physical thing? So I pull out, a £10 note. Mm. We all agree that it's a £10 note, but it isn't actually a £10 note, is it? It's just a piece of paper. Mm. So we infer this, I'm trying to find the right word, this subjective, it's like an intersubjective reality. We're all in on it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any real absolute validity, like Houses of Parliament. No matter how hard you try to find the Houses of Parliament, you will never find the Houses of Parliament. Because, well, it's the Houses of Parliament is more than just a building, isn't it? It's a whole set of ideas about how, governance and politics and a whole history around it. So Houses of Parliament are more than just a building. And this is even before we go into ultimates and start saying, well, where's the building?
Yeah.
There's shape and colour, maybe there's sense of touch, or whatever. But even in a very general sense, you can't actually find Houses of Parliament as a physically existing object. But we all kind of sort of agree that that's a real thing, because it makes life manageable. They're like linguistic shortcuts. Words. We pack really incredibly complex a complex set of ideas into these really small sort of words, and so we all agree upon them, because otherwise, if we had to explain everything, we had to extrapolate everything out to make sure that we understood each other, we'd never finish a conversation. So yeah, emptiness is a core theme of Buddhism, and I think it's through it's through practicing insight meditation that you come to start to recognise it. It is incredibly difficult to talk about, to describe it.
Emptiness.
Yeah.
And I mean, going back to what you were saying about self earlier, you said, about how there's eye consciousness. I think you said, if you decide to go out the door now, in a sense, like you are deciding to go out the door now, so the act of intention or volition, but is it you really making that decision? Like, what's actually happening there?
Well, yeah, what is the you in all of that?
Yeah.
Because the discovery is that there can be that whole series of complex psychophysical activities in opening a door without the need for a self. Because what do we even mean by the word self? It's just, there's just this a priori assumption that there is a self. And people will say to me, well, if there's no self, Paul, how come I can open a door? And I say, well, the process, we're not saying that the processes of opening the door are not happening. We're not saying that the intention, the decision, the volition, and the actual performance of the activity are not happening. We're saying that there is no self in any of it. There is no requirement. It's just a massive assumption that it requires this never discovered, totally under-identifiable entity that's always present but never found, that is actually doing all of these things, separate from the rest of existence. And it's, as you walk the insight path, it becomes laughable that there could be this entity that's always there, but has never in the whole of history been identified by anybody. And people will say, oh, yeah, one chap contacted me on YouTube saying, yeah, but I left my body one time and I looked back and I saw my body. So the entity doing the seeing, that was my soul. No, that's just recalibrating the same assumption and just applying it to a different experience. Nothing's been proven by that, because there's seeing consciousness happening. There is perception, there is cognition, there's volition, there's decision, and it's happening outside the physical body. Fine. Fine with that, but it doesn't prove the existence of a self. It's just saying, well, it's not this, but it's that.
Yeah.
It's still applying the conceptual construct of self to an experience.
To the out-of-body experience.
Yeah. But it's not. But in no way, shape, or form is it a proof of anything. Well, it certainly proves that there's consciousness outside the physical body, if someone experiences that, but it's not proof that that's a soul. I know this is going to be controversial. But the whole point about the Buddha's teaching is that you can, and this is another issue that perhaps needs clarifying, is that you are allowed to use the terms. So the Buddha talked about himself. In my former life, I was, when I was the Bodhisattva, it doesn't mean that he hasn't completely seen through the concept of selfhood. He has. That's his enlightenment. And people get very confused. They say, well, how can you on the one hand say there are no things, and then on the next hand say, oh, my record collection, and the thing is that I'm talking when I'm talking about conventional reality, I use the concepts relevant for conventional reality. When I talk about ultimate experience, I use the language suitable for describing ultimate experience, in which there is no self. And then further on, for somebody who has realised the truth of the way things are, there is just this seamless reality which has no division in it at all. There are no things. But the very act of using language, even to describe that, is starting that process of division. So there's no contradiction. It's just using different levels of language suitable for the different level of reality that you are describing.